The massive Zephyrian battle fleet moved through space like a pack of metal predators. 200 ships spread across the void, their dark hulls gleaming under the light of distant stars. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical display with satisfaction. For 300 years, his people had ruled this part of the galaxy. No one dared to challenge them. "Admiral, we have an unknown contact," reported his sensor officer, a young Zephyrian named Veltok. His 4 eyes blinked rapidly as he studied his instruments. "Single vessel bearing 27 Mark IV. Kethvar turned his large frame toward the officer. His scaled skin caught the bridge lights as he moved. "Classification? Unknown, sir. The ship does not match any design in our database. It appears to be small." The Admiral's mandibles clicked in amusement. "How small?" "Approximately 400 meters in length. Mass readings are strange, though. The instruments keep giving different numbers." Kethvar moved to the main viewer. On the screen, a distant speck of light grew larger as the ship's cameras focused on it. The vessel that appeared made him pause. It looked nothing like the bulky, angular ships his people built. This ship was smooth, almost organic in its curves. Strange energy patterns danced along its hull. "Have they responded to our hailing frequencies?" he asked. "No, sir. We have tried all standard communication channels. They remain silent." The Admiral considered this. In his experience, only 2 types of ships ignored Zephyrian hails, those that were about to surrender and those that were about to attack. Given the size of his fleet compared to the single unknown vessel, he doubted it was the latter. "Send a squadron to intercept. Standard protocol. If they refuse to identify themselves, disable their engines and bring them in for questioning." Far away on the bridge of the human ship Defiant, Captain Jake Morrison watched the alien fleet through his own view screen. The middle-aged man sat calmly in his command chair, his gray eyes studying the enemy formation. Beside him, Lieutenant Amy Parker worked at her tactical station, her blonde hair tied back as she monitored the approaching alien ships. "Captain, they are sending 12 vessels toward us," Amy reported. "Heavy cruiser class based on our scans." "Any response to our warning beacon, Lieutenant?" Jake asked. "Negative, sir. They either cannot understand it or are choosing to ignore it." Commander Rick Hayes, Jake's first officer, leaned forward from his position. The tall, dark-haired man looked concerned. "Sir, our orders were to observe only. We are not supposed to engage unless directly threatened." Jake nodded slowly. "I understand our orders, Rick, but they are moving to intercept us in what we have already declared as protected space. That sounds like a direct threat to me." The captain touched a button on his chair. "Engineering. This is the bridge. How are our systems?" The voice of Chief Engineer Bob Collins came through the speakers. "All systems are green, Captain. The new power core is running at optimal levels. We are ready for whatever you need." Jake looked at his crew. These men and women had trained for this moment for years, though none of them had expected it to come so soon. Humanity had been watching the galaxy for decades, learning about the various species and their technologies. The Zephyrian Empire was one of the most aggressive, expanding their territory by force and enslaving weaker species. "Amy, what is the status of their weapons?" Jake asked. "Their ships are armed with plasma cannons and missile systems, standard for their technology level. Nothing that should concern us." The captain almost smiled. Nothing that should concern them indeed. The aliens had no idea what they were dealing with. Humanity's ships used technology so advanced that these aliens would think it was magic dot on the Zephyrian flagship. Admiral Kethvar watched his squadron approach the unknown ship. The 12 vessels were among his best, commanded by experienced officers. They should have no trouble dealing with a single small vessel. "Admiral," called his communications officer. "Squadron Leader Morthak reports they are in position to disable the unknown ship." "Proceed," Kethvar ordered. The squadron moved into attack formation around the human ship, their plasma cannons charged, ready to fire warning shots across the stranger's bow. It was a standard tactic that had worked countless times before. But as they prepared to fire, something impossible happened. The human ship simply vanished. 4 A moment, the Zephyrian officers stared at their screens in confusion. The unknown vessel had been there 1 second and gone the next. No explosion, no debris, just empty space. Where did it go? Admiral Keithvar demanded. Before anyone could answer, the ship reappeared directly behind the squadron, but this time, it was different. Energy crackled along its hull like living lightning. Strange distortions in space formed around its weapon. Ports. On the Defiance bridge, Jake Morrison watched the alien ships scramble to reposition themselves. Amy, are we recording everything? Yes, sir. Full tactical analysis is being transmitted back to command. Good. Rick, open a channel to the alien fleet. Commander Hayes worked at his station. Channel open, Captain. Jake stood up from his chair. When he spoke, his voice was calm but carried authority. Attention, Zephyrian fleet. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Terran vessel Defiant. You have entered space claimed and protected by humanity. You have also threatened a human ship with hostile action. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. On the Zephyrian flagship, the translation systems worked to decode the message. When the meaning became clear, Admiral Keithvar felt a chill run through his scaled body. Humans? He had heard rumors of a species by that name, but they were supposed to be primitive, barely capable of spaceflight. Impossible, he muttered. Scan that ship again, full spectrum analysis. The sensor officer's claws clicked rapidly over his controls. Sir, the readings they make no sense. The ship appears to be using some form of space-time manipulation. The energy signatures are unlike anything in our database. Keithvar's military training took over. Unknown ship or not, he commanded the most powerful fleet in this sector. All ships, battle formation, target the unknown vessel. If they think they can threaten the Zephyrian Empire with a single ship, they are about to learn otherwise. The massive fleet began to move, 200 warships turning their weapons toward the small human vessel. Plasma cannons charged to full power. Missile tubes loaded their deadliest warheads. It should have been overwhelming force against a hopeless target. Jake Morrison watched the alien fleet prepare for battle and sighed. They had their chance, Amy. Weapons free. Show them what they are dealing with. Yes, sir. Lieutenant Parker's fingers moved over her console with practiced ease. Singularity torpedoes armed and ready. Gravitational field generators online. Temporal displacement shields activated. The Defiant's hull began to glow with an inner light. Space around the ship started to bend and twist in ways that hurt to look at. The human vessel had stopped looking like a normal ship, and now resembled something from a nightmare. Admiral Keithvar watched in growing horror, as reality itself seemed to warp around the enemy vessel. What kind of technology is that? He whispered. His answer came in the form of weapons fire unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Defiant launched what appeared to be small, dark spheres toward the Zephyrian fleet. But as they traveled through space, the spheres began to grow, pulling light and matter into themselves. They were artificial black holes, controlled and directed by human technology. The first singularity torpedo struck a Zephyrian heavy cruiser. The ship simply ceased to exist, crushed into nothingness in a fraction of a second. The second torpedo passed through a formation of destroyers, and 5 ships vanished as one. Evasive maneuvers, Admiral Keithvar shouted, but his ships were too large and slow to avoid the impossible weapons. More torpedoes launched from the human ship. Each one destroyed multiple vessels, leaving nothing behind but distorted space where proud warships had been moments before. The Zephyrian return fire struck the Defiant's shields and simply vanished. Absorbed by fields that bent the laws of physics. Lieutenant Parker worked calmly at her station, targeting enemy ships with surgical precision. Captain, should I activate the wide area field generators? Jake considered this. The wide area generators could destroy the entire enemy fleet in seconds, but that seemed excessive. Negative. Continue with targeted strikes. Leave the flagship intact. Understood, sir. The battle, if it could even be called that, lasted less than 10 minutes. One by one, the Zephyrian ships disappeared into artificial black holes or were torn apart by gravitational weapons. Some tried to flee, but the human ship moved through space in ways that ignored normal physics, appearing wherever it needed to be to cut off escape routes. Admiral Kethvar stood on his bridge, watching his fleet die around him. Ships that had served the Empire for decades, crews that had families waiting for them at home, all gone in moments. The power he was witnessing was beyond comprehension. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "we are receiving another transmission from the human ship." "Put it through." Captain Morrison's voice filled the bridge once again. "Admiral Kethvar, I am leaving your ship intact so that you can return to your people with a message. Humanity claims the territories you call the Outer Rim. Any Zephyrian ship that enters this space will be destroyed. Any attempt to harm. The Zephyrian capital world of Zethtar gleamed under its twin suns, a planet-wide city of crystal towers and floating platforms. For 3 centuries, it had been the center of an empire that stretched across dozens of star systems. Today, it would become the center of fear. Emperor Zathkol stood in his private chambers high above the city, his massive form silhouetted against the panoramic windows. At over 8 feet tall, with scales that shifted color based on his mood, he was an imposing figure even among his own people. Right now, those scales showed deep purple, a sign of barely controlled rage. "You expect me to believe this?" he growled, turning to face Admiral Kethvar. The admiral stood at attention before his emperor, still wearing his damaged uniform from the battle. "A single ship destroyed our entire Outer Rim fleet?" "Yes, Your Majesty," Kethvar replied. His own scales showed pale blue, indicating fear and respect. "I have brought the sensor recordings and tactical data. The evidence is undeniable." Emperor Zathkol moved to his desk and activated a holographic display. The recorded images of the battle appeared in the air between them. He watched in silence as the human ship appeared, vanished, and reappeared. He saw the impossible weapons that turned proud warships into nothing. When the recording ended, the room remained quiet for a long moment. "What kind of technology is this kind?" the Emperor asked finally. "Unknown, Your Majesty. Our scientists are analyzing the data, but they say it appears to violate several fundamental laws of physics." The Emperor's scales darkened further. "Laws of physics do not get violated. Either our understanding is incomplete, or these recordings are false." "The recordings are genuine, Your Majesty. I stake my honor on it." Before the Emperor could respond, the chamber doors slid open. Research Director Veltar entered, flanked by 2 other scientists. The tall, thin Zephyrian carried a data tablet and looked deeply troubled. "Your Majesty," Veltar said, bowing low, "I have completed the preliminary analysis of the battle data." "And?" Veltar straightened, his scales showing the gray color of uncertainty. "The evidence suggests the humans have mastered gravitational manipulation at a level we thought impossible. They appear to be creating and controlling artificial singularities as weapons." Emperor Zathkol stared at the scientist. "Artificial singularities? That would require energy levels beyond our comprehension." "Yes, Your Majesty. The power requirements for such technology would be enormous. They would need energy sources far beyond anything we possess." The Emperor moved to his window again, looking out over his capital city. Millions of Zephyrians went about their daily lives below, unaware that their empire had just encountered something that could destroy them all. "What else?" he asked without turning around. Veltar consulted his tablet. "The ship also demonstrated some form of space-time manipulation for movement. They appeared to teleport instantly across the battlefield. Additionally, their defensive systems absorbed our weapons fire completely, not deflected or weakened, absorbed. As if our weapons were toys," Admiral Kethvar added quietly. "More than that," Veltar continued. "I believe their ship was not even trying to destroy our fleet efficiently. The rate of fire and targeting patterns suggest they were holding back significantly." This made the Emperor turn around. "Holding back? They destroyed nearly 200 ships in 10 minutes. "Yes, Your Majesty. But they did so 1 ship at a time, with surgical precision. If they had wanted to, they could have destroyed the entire fleet simultaneously. They chose not to." The implications of this statement hung in the air like a toxic cloud. The humans had not been fighting for their lives. They had been making a point. Have we learned anything else about these humans? The Emperor asked. Another figure entered the chamber. Intelligence Director Morthek was smaller than the others but carried himself with quiet authority. His scales showed the steady brown of determination. Your Majesty, I have been reviewing our intelligence files. We do have some information about humanity, though it is limited. Speak. Morthek activated his own data display. Star charts appeared, showing the Outer Rim territories. Humans appear to originate from a system they call Sol, located in what we considered empty space beyond the rim. Our scouts reported signs of basic space travel from that region approximately 50 years ago. 50 years? Admiral Kethvar interrupted. Our first surveys of that area showed primitive technology at best. Yes, sir. That is what makes this so concerning. Either our intelligence was completely wrong or humanity has advanced at an impossible rate. Emperor Zathakol studied the star charts. What do we know about their colonies? Very little, Your Majesty. We have detected some settlements in the Outer Rim, but they seemed minor. Small populations, basic infrastructure. We assumed they were insignificant. Clearly, we assumed wrong. Morthek nodded. There is more, Your Majesty. I have been reviewing communications intercepts from the past decade. Several species in the Outer Rim have reported strange encounters with unknown ships. Ships that appeared and disappeared without explanation. Unknown ships? We dismissed them as sensor ghosts or exaggerated stories. Now I believe they were human vessels conducting surveillance. The Emperor felt a chill run through his massive frame. Surveillance for how long? Possibly decades, Your Majesty. If they have been watching us in secret, they may know more about our empire than we know about them. Research Director Veltar stepped forward again. Your Majesty, there is something else. I have been studying the human captain's message to Admiral Kethvar. The language they use suggests they have been monitoring our communications for some time. How so? They knew the Admiral's name and rank. They spoke in our language. They understood our military protocols well enough to know that leaving the flagship intact would ensure their message reached you. Emperor Zathakol felt his scales shifting to dark red, a color that meant danger. Are you telling me these humans have been studying us while we remained ignorant of their true capabilities? It appears so, Your Majesty. The Emperor walked to his command console and activated the Empire-wide communication system. His image would now appear on screens across dozens of worlds, reaching billions of Zephyrians. Citizens of the Empire, he began, his voice carrying the authority of centuries of rule. We face a new challenge. A species called humanity has demonstrated military capabilities beyond our current understanding. All Outer Rim expansion is suspended immediately. Fleet commanders are to avoid human territory until further notice. He paused, considering his next words carefully. This is not a retreat. This is strategic caution while we gather more information about our new neighbors. The transmission ended, but the Emperor knew the real work was just beginning. He turned back to his advisors. Morthek, I want every piece of intelligence about humanity compiled immediately. Old reports, sensor data, intercepted communications, everything. Yes, Your Majesty. Veltar, your scientists will study this battle data until they understand how the humans achieved what we witnessed. I want options for defending against their technology. Understood, Your Majesty. Admiral Kethvar, you will work with intelligence to determine the extent of human territory and military presence. We need to know what we are dealing with. As his advisors began to leave, the Emperor called out one more order. And I want to know about their intentions. Are they conquerors like us or something else entirely? Alone in his chamber, Emperor Zathkol stared out at his capital city again. The Zephyrian Empire had been built on the principle of overwhelming force. They expanded by conquering weaker species and taking what they needed. It was a simple, effective strategy that had worked for centuries. But now they had encountered a species that could destroy them with ease. Worse, that species had shown restraint. The humans could have annihilated Admiral Kethvar's flagship as easily as they had destroyed the rest of the fleet. Instead, They had sent a message. What kind of species possessed ultimate power, but chose not to use it? Hours later, in the Empire's Intelligence Center, Morthek stood before a wall of screens displaying everything they knew about humanity. It was depressingly little. A few blurry images of ships, some intercepted radio signals, basic astronomical data about their home system. Director, called one of his analysts, a young female named Kortha. I have found something interesting in the old files. Show me. The screen displayed a report from 20 years ago. One of our deep space scouts reported detecting unusual energy signatures from the Sol system. The reading suggested massive construction projects. Morthek studied the data. What kind of construction? Unknown, sir. The scout was recalled. Before he could investigate further, the report was filed as low priority. The intelligence director felt his scales shift to purple with anger. Low priority. They had detected signs of major human activity 20 years ago and ignored it. What else have we missed? He wondered aloud. Another analyst spoke up. Sir, I have been reviewing trade records from the Outer Rim. Several species report contact with mysterious traders over the past decade. They described the traders as bipedal, like humans. What were they trading? Advanced medical supplies mostly, some energy technology. The traders always paid in rare minerals and disappeared quickly. Morthek began to see a pattern forming. The humans had not been hiding entirely. The human colony of New Eden floated in space like a massive crystal flower. Built around a captured asteroid, the station housed over 10 million people and served as the administrative center for humanity's expanding presence in the galaxy. Its transparent aluminum domes reflected the light of nearby stars, creating patterns of beauty that no alien species had ever imagined. In the deepest levels of the station, the Terran Defense Council met in emergency session. Admiral Lisa Grant stood at the head of the conference table, her silver hair reflecting the glow of holographic displays that showed the entire Outer Rim territory. Around her sat the most powerful humans in known space, their faces serious as they discussed the implications of recent events. The Zephyrian fleet has been neutralized, Admiral Grant reported. Captain Morrison carried out his orders perfectly. 199 enemy ships destroyed, flagships spared to carry our message. President John Adams, a tall man with kind eyes and graying temples, leaned forward in his chair. Any response from their government? Intelligence reports massive military mobilization across their empire. They are pulling fleets back from expansion zones and reinforcing their home systems. They are scared, observed Dr. Alex Turner, the expedition's chief scientist. The young man with dark hair and intense eyes had been studying alien technology for most of his adult life. Their reaction suggests they understand the gap between our capabilities and theirs. General Sam Collins, a weathered veteran with scars from humanity's early exploration missions, spoke next. The question is whether fear will make them reasonable or desperate. Desperate enemies do stupid things. Admiral Grant activated a new display showing intelligence reports from across the galaxy. Our observation posts report increased communications traffic throughout their empire. They are definitely taking this seriously. President Adams studied the data carefully. What about other species? How are they reacting to news of the battle? Mixed responses, replied Ambassador Kate Wilson, a diplomatic expert with blonde hair and sharp blue eyes. The Centauri Alliance is requesting information about our intentions. The Rigel Syndicate wants to know if we are accepting new trade partners. The smaller species that have been oppressed by the Zephyrians are quietly celebrating. And the Zephyrians themselves? They have sent a diplomatic request. They want to meet at Omega 7 Station to discuss territorial boundaries and peaceful relations. President Adams almost smiled. How civilized of them. Amazing how reasonable people become when they realize they cannot win a fight. Dr. Turner activated his own display, showing technical specifications that would have seemed like magic to any alien scientist. Mr. President, we need to discuss how much of our technology to reveal during these negotiations. Explain. The Zephyrians saw our basic combat capabilities. singularity torpedoes, gravitational field generation, limited spacetime manipulation, but they have no idea about the real extent of our abilities. General Collins nodded in agreement. Alex is right. What they saw was just the tip of the iceberg. If they knew about our dimensional technology, time dilation fields, or matter conversion systems, they might panic enough to do something truly stupid. Admiral Grant brought up another display showing the human fleet positions. Speaking of our capabilities, we should discuss deployment. We currently have over 500 ships in the Outer Rim, all equipped with our latest technology. The Zephyrians have no idea they exist. President Adams considered this information. The fleet Admiral Grant mentioned represented only a fraction of humanity's total military strength, hidden in dark space, protected by stealth technology that made them completely undetectable. Thousands of human ships waited for orders. "Tell me again how we achieved this level of technology," the president said. "I want to make sure our negotiating position is clear." Dr. Turner stood and activated a historical display. It began 75 years ago with the Luna discovery. Dr. Janet Foster and her team found the alien installation buried beneath the moon's surface. The display showed images of the ancient underground complex that had changed everything for humanity. Vast chambers filled with technology from a civilization that had vanished millions of years ago. The builders called themselves the predecessors, Dr. Turner continued. Their technology was so advanced that we still do not understand most of it. But what we could understand and adapt gave us capabilities far beyond any current galactic civilization. The learning curve was steep, added General Collins. It took us decades to figure out how to safely use their power sources. We lost 3 research stations to containment failures before we got it right. Admiral Grant took over the presentation. Once we mastered their technology, we faced a choice. We could announce ourselves to the galaxy as a major power, or we could remain hidden while we explored and learned. The decision to stay hidden was wise, President Adams observed. It gave us time to understand the political situation out here. More than that, Ambassador Wilson added, it let us see what kind of species we were dealing with. The Zephyrians have conquered or enslaved dozens of worlds. The Rigel Syndicate practices biological experimentation on sentient beings. The Vorthan Collective eliminates entire species that they consider genetically inferior. Dr. Turner nodded grimly. If we had announced ourselves 75 years ago, every aggressive species in the galaxy would have tried to capture our technology. The wars would have been devastating. Instead, we watched, learned, and prepared, President Adams said. Now we are in a position to actually influence events rather than just react to them. General Collins activated a tactical display showing human defensive positions throughout their territory. Our current military posture is designed for protection, not conquest. Every human colony is defended by systems that could stop any known alien fleet. Our exploration ships are powerful enough to deal with hostile contact, and our hidden fleet can respond to threats anywhere in this region within days. What about our diplomatic position? The president asked. Ambassador Wilson stood and moved to a display showing the political map of the galaxy. We have been in limited contact with 17 different species over the past 20 years. Careful, controlled contact that let us understand their cultures and intentions without revealing our true capabilities. Most of them see us as mysterious but harmless traitors, she continued. We have provided medical technology and energy solutions in exchange for information and raw materials. We have built a reputation as helpful but secretive. That reputation will work in our favor now, President Adams observed. When other species learn about our military capabilities, they will remember that we used our advanced technology to help rather than conquer. Dr. Turner brought up another display showing alien technology levels. Mr. President, I should point out that our technology gap with other species is actually increasing. The predecessor installation continues to reveal new discoveries. Last month, we successfully tested a device that can manipulate time flow within a localized area. Time manipulation? Admiral Grant asked with interest. Limited applications so far. We can slow down time in a small area or speed it up slightly. The military applications are obvious. but the scientific possibilities are even more exciting. General, Collins looked concerned. How many people know about these new discoveries? Very few. The deep research projects are classified at the highest levels. Only the council members in this room and a handful of scientists have full knowledge of our current capabilities. President Adams made a decision. Keep it that way. What other species do not know cannot be used against us or them. We will reveal our technology gradually, as needed for specific diplomatic or defensive purposes. The room fell quiet as everyone considered the weight of their situation. Humanity had gone from a single-planet species to the most technologically advanced civilization in the galaxy in less than a century. With that advancement came enormous responsibility, Mr. President, Admiral Grant said finally. We need to decide on our long-term strategy. Are we going to be galactic police keeping the peace through superior firepower? Are we going to be teachers sharing our technology to uplift other species? Or are we going to be isolationists, protecting our own interests and leaving others alone? Can we be all three, depending on the situation? President Adams replied. Possibly, but we need to establish some basic principles to guide our decisions. Ambassador Wilson stepped forward. I suggest we start with the principle of protection. We protect human interests first, but we also protect innocent species from aggression. The Zephyrians have been conquering and enslaving others for centuries. We have the power to stop that, agreed, said General Collins. But we should also be careful not to become conquerors ourselves. Power corrupts, and we have more power than any species in galactic history, Doctor. Turner nodded. We should also consider the principle of gradual revelation. We share our technology slowly, making sure each advancement is used wisely before moving to the next level, President. Adams looked around the table at his advisors. So our strategy is protection, gradual uplift, and careful expansion of our influence. We become the guardians of galactic peace, but we do it carefully and responsibly. What about the Zephyrians specifically? Admiral Grant asked. Omega-7 space station hung in the void between star systems like a metallic spider web. Built by a consortium of neutral species decades ago, it served as the galaxy's primary diplomatic meeting place. Its rotating sections provided gravity for dozens of different species, while its central core remained in zero gravity for those who preferred it. Today, representatives from across the galaxy gathered to witness something unprecedented, first contact between humanity and the established galactic powers. Ambassador Kate Wilson stood in the human delegation's quarters, adjusting her formal diplomatic uniform. The dark blue fabric bore the insignia of the Terran Federation, a symbol most species in the galaxy had never seen before. Through the porthole, she could see her escort ship, the Harmony, docked at the station's main port. The Harmony was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. Its smooth organic curves gleamed with an inner light that came from its advanced power systems. Unlike the angular, brutal designs favored by most galactic militaries, the human ship looked almost alive. Ambassador, called Commander Rick Hayes from across the room. The Zephyrian delegation has arrived. Kate turned from the window. How many ships? 3 vessels, 2 heavy cruisers and what appears to be a diplomatic transport. They are maintaining a respectful distance as agreed. And our observers? Centauri Alliance sent 2 ships. The Rigel Syndicate has 1 vessel. Several smaller species have sent representatives. It appears half the galaxy wants to see what happens here. Kate nodded. That was expected. News of the battle had spread quickly through galactic communication networks. Every species wanted to know about the humans and their incredible technology. What about station security? Minimal as requested. Station Administrator Corwin has assigned only basic personnel. He seems nervous about hosting this meeting. Kate could understand that nervousness. If negotiations went badly, Omega-7 could become a battlefield between technologies that could destroy entire star systems. A soft chime indicated an incoming communication. Kate activated the display to see the blue-scaled face of Diplomat Prime, Zendal, the Zephyrian Empire's chief negotiator. Ambassador Wilson, Zendal said formally. I request permission to begin our discussions at your convenience. Granted, Diplomat Prime. Shall we meet in Conference Chamber 7 in 1 hour? Acceptable. I should inform you that our delegation includes military advisors and technical specialists, as does ours. We look forward to productive discussions. The transmission ended, leaving Kate alone with her thoughts. She had studied Zephyrian culture for years, learning their customs, their language, and their psychology. They were a proud species that respected strength, but understood pragmatism. Today's negotiations would require both. An hour later, Kate entered Conference Chamber 7 accompanied by her team. Dr. Alex Turner carried detailed technical briefings about human capabilities. General Sam Collins, despite his retirement from active duty, had been brought in as a military advisor. Captain Ben Rogers, commander of the Harmony, represented human naval power. The Zephyrian delegation was already seated across the circular table. Diplomat Prime Zendal sat at their center, flanked by Admiral Kethvar and several other officials Kate did not recognize. The tension in the room was obvious as both sides studied each other. Diplomat Prime Zendal, Kate began formally. I am Ambassador Kate Wilson, representing the Terran Federation and all human colonies. We appreciate your willingness to meet and discuss our mutual concerns. Zendal's scales showed a cautious blue-green color. Ambassador Wilson, the Zephyrian Empire acknowledges the events that brought us to this meeting. We seek to understand humanity's intentions and establish proper boundaries between our peoples. Kate noticed the careful phrasing. Zendal was avoiding any direct reference to the destruction of the Zephyrian fleet, treating it as a diplomatic incident rather than a military defeat. Our intentions are simple, Kate replied. Humanity claims the territories we call the Outer Rim as our sphere of influence. We seek peaceful coexistence with all species, but will defend our interests and those of our allies. Your allies? Admiral Kethvar spoke for the first time. Which species have allied themselves with humanity? Dr. Turner answered carefully. We have established friendly relations with 17 different species over the past 20 years. Formal alliance treaties are being negotiated with several of them. This was news to the Zephyrians, and Kate could see the implications registering on their faces. Humanity was not an isolated species with one powerful ship. They had been building relationships throughout the galaxy. What technologies did you trade for these friendships? Asked a Zephyrian scientist whose name Kate did not know. Medical advances, energy systems, and defensive technologies, Dr. Turner replied. We have helped these species improve their quality of life and protect themselves from aggression. The unspoken message was clear. Humanity had been arming potential allies while the Zephyrians remained ignorant of their existence. Diplomat Prime Zendal leaned forward. Ambassador Wilson, the Zephyrian Empire has legitimate territorial claims in the regions you call the Outer Rim. These claims predate any human presence by centuries. Kate had expected this argument. Diplomat Prime, the Zephyrian Empire's claims, were based on the conquest and subjugation of weaker species. Humanity does not recognize territorial claims based on aggression against innocent populations. You speak of aggression, Admiral Kethvar said, his scales darkening. Yet your ship destroyed an entire fleet without warning or negotiation. General, Collins spoke for the first time, his voice calm but firm. Admiral, your fleet entered human-protected space with weapons armed and hostile intent. Captain Morrison issued clear warnings that were ignored. The engagement only began when your ships moved to attack. 1 ship against 200. Kethvar replied. You cannot claim self-defense. We can and do, Kate said firmly. The size of an attacking force does not determine the legitimacy of defending against it. Captain Rogers activated a holographic display showing the tactical situation during the battle. Admiral Kethvar, our records show that your ships charged weapons and assumed attack formation before any hostile action by the Defiant. Captain Morrison was defending himself and enforcing clearly established territorial boundaries. The Zephyrian delegation studied the display with obvious discomfort. The tactical data clearly showed their fleet as the aggressor in the encounter. Perhaps we should focus on the future rather than debating past events, Diplomat Prime Zendal suggested. What does humanity want from these negotiations? Kate had prepared for this moment. First, formal recognition of human territorial claims in the Outer Rim. Second, cessation of Zephyrian military operations against the species within our sphere of influence. Third, establishment of formal diplomatic relations between our peoples. And, in return, peaceful coexistence, trade opportunities, and access to limited human technologies that could benefit your people. This got the Zephyrians' attention. Access to human technology, even limited access, could revolutionize their civilization. What technologies? Asked the Zephyrian scientist. Dr. Turner consulted his notes. Medical advances that could extend Zephyrian lifespans by decades. Energy systems that could power your cities more efficiently. Agricultural techniques that could end food shortages on your colonies. But not military technologies, Admiral Kethvar observed. Not initially, General Collins confirmed. Military technology sharing would require deeper trust and cooperation between our peoples. Diplomat Prime Zendal exchanged glances with his advisors. Kate could see them weighing the offer. The Zephyrians had built their empire through military conquest, but here was an opportunity to advance their civilization through cooperation instead. Ambassador Wilson, Zendal said finally, you must understand that the Zephyrian Empire cannot simply abandon territories we have controlled for generations. Our people have settlements, military bases, and economic interests throughout the Outer Rim. Kate nodded. We understand, Diplomat Prime. That is why we are proposing a transition period. Existing Zephyrian settlements can remain, but expansion into new territories would require human approval. Military bases in disputed areas would be withdrawn over an agreed timeline. And what of the species we currently govern? Kate had to resist the urge to smile at the euphemism. Species under Zephyrian control would be given the choice of independence, human protection, or continued association with the Empire under reformed conditions. Reformed conditions, equal treatment, representation in government, and the right to leave if they choose. Admiral Kethvar's scales showed deep red, indicating anger. You ask us to abandon the very foundations of our empire. We ask you to evolve, Kate replied calmly. The galaxy is changing, Admiral. Species that adapt to cooperation and mutual benefit will thrive. Those that cling to conquest and domination will find themselves increasingly isolated. And if we refuse these terms? The question hung in the air like a threat. Kate had hoped to avoid this moment, but the Zephyrians needed to understand their position clearly. Captain Rogers activated another display, this one showing human fleet positions throughout the Outer Rim. Red dots appeared across the star map, each representing a human vessel. We currently have 50 ships deployed in the eye. 6 months after the first contact negotiations at Omega 7, the galaxy had transformed in ways no one could have predicted. The massive space station of Nexus Prime, built in the years following the historic peace accords, served as the new center of galactic civilization. Representatives from over 100 species worked together in chambers that gleamed with human-designed technology and alien artistry. President John Adams stood at the observation deck of the human embassy, watching ships from dozens of worlds dock at the station's many ports. Zephyrian vessels flew alongside Centauri Alliance ships, while smaller craft from newly independent worlds mixed freely with the traffic. It was a sight that would have been impossible just months ago. Mr. President, called Ambassador Kate Wilson as she entered the room. The Galactic Assembly is ready to begin the formal session. John turned from the window, straightening his formal diplomatic robes. The deep blue fabric bore the symbols of all the worlds that had joined the new Galactic Confederation under human leadership. How many species are participating today? 87 full members with another 32 as observers. The Zephyrian Empire is sending Emperor Zathkol himself. And Admiral Kethvar? Kate smiled. He will be there as well. His transformation has been remarkable. John nodded. The admiral who had once commanded fleets of conquest now served as the Zephyrian representative for interspecies military cooperation. His change from aggressor to peacekeeper had surprised everyone, including himself. They made their way through the station's corridors, passing beings from across the galaxy. Tall, thin Centaurians walked beside short, stocky Rigelians. The crystal-like Vorthan spoke in musical tones with the plant-based Sylvani. Humans moved among them all, no longer the mysterious species from the Rim but active participants in galactic society. The assembly hall was a marvel of engineering that combined the best technologies from dozens of worlds. The chamber could accommodate thousands of representatives while providing perfect acoustics and translation for over 200 languages. At its center stood a podium where speakers could address the entire galaxy. A's President Adams took his seat in the human delegation area. He reflected on the events that had brought them to this moment. The negotiations at Omega-7 had been just the beginning. The Zephyrian Empire had initially tried to find military solutions to the human problem. They had reached out to other aggressive species, seeking allies for a war against humanity. But those potential allies had quickly learned about human capabilities and chosen neutrality instead. The Empire had found itself completely isolated, facing an enemy they could not defeat and allies they could not find. Emperor Zathkol had finally accepted reality and agreed to the human terms. The transition had been difficult but ultimately successful. Zephyrian military bases were withdrawn from disputed territories. Species under their control were given the choice of independence or reformed association with the Empire. Many chose independence, but some remained as equal partners rather than subjects. The medical technologies Dr. Turner had promised proved to be just the beginning. Human scientists shared agricultural advances that ended food shortages on dozens of worlds. Energy systems revolutionized industrial production across the galaxy. Transportation technologies made interstellar travel faster and safer for everyone. Distinguished representatives, called Assembly President Corwin from the podium. We gather today to formally establish the Galactic Confederation Charter and welcome our newest members. The chamber fell silent as beings from across the galaxy focused their attention on the historic moment. President Adams stood as his name was called, making his way to the podium to address the assembly. Members of the Galactic Assembly, he began, his voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. 6 months ago, humanity emerged from isolation to take our place among the stars. We came not as conquerors but as partners, seeking to build a galaxy where all species could thrive in peace and cooperation. He paused, looking out at the sea of faces, some familiar, others completely alien, but all united in this moment. The old galaxy was ruled by fear and conquest. Stronger species dominated weaker ones. Resources were taken by force. Entire civilizations lived in terror of their neighbors. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Many of the species present had been victims of aggressive expansion by larger powers. Today we establish a new model, President Adams continued. The Galactic Confederation will be built on principles of mutual respect, shared prosperity, and collective defense. No member world will be forced to submit to the will of others. No species will be conquered or enslaved. We will face the challenges of the galaxy together as equals. Emperor Zathkol rose from his seat in the Zephyrian section. His massive frame commanded attention as he approached a speaking platform. President Adams, he said formally. The Zephyrian Empire wishes to address the assembly. John nodded respectfully. The floor recognizes Emperor Zathkol. The Emperor's scales showed a deep blue color that indicated humility, an emotion few had ever seen from a Zephyrian leader. Representatives of the galaxy, I stand before you today as a leader whose people have learned the true meaning of strength. He paused, choosing his words carefully. For centuries, the Zephyrian Empire believed that power came from the ability to dominate others. We conquered worlds, enslaved species, and ruled through fear. We thought this made us strong. His scales shifted to purple, showing regret. Humanity showed us that true strength comes from the power to protect rather than destroy. They possessed weapons that could have eliminated our entire civilization in hours. Instead, they chose restraint, diplomacy, and cooperation. Emperor Zathkol looked directly at President Adams. The Zephyrian Empire formally renounces all claims to territory based on conquest. We pledge to defend the weak rather than exploit them. We ask for membership in this confederation not as conquerors seeking new advantages, but as students learning to be better. The chamber erupted in applause that lasted several minutes. Many species had suffered under Zephyrian aggression and, hearing their former oppressor ask for forgiveness was deeply moving. Admiral Kethvar also rose to speak. I commanded the fleet that first encountered humanity in battle. I learned that day that true military strength is not measured by the ability to destroy, but by the wisdom to know when destruction is necessary and when it is not. He gestured toward the human delegation. Captain Jake Morrison could have destroyed my flagship along with the rest of my fleet. Instead, he spared it so that I could carry word of humanity's power back to my people. That single act of mercy changed the course of galactic history. From the gallery, Captain Morrison stood and nodded respectfully to the Admiral. The two warriors had become unlikely friends during the transition period, bonding over their shared understanding of military duty and honor. Dr. Alex Turner approached another speaking platform. Members of the Assembly, I am pleased to announce the next phase of technological sharing under the Confederation Charter. A holographic display appeared above the chamber, showing star maps and technical specifications. Humanity will be establishing research centers on 20 different worlds, where our scientists will work alongside local researchers to develop technologies suited to each species' specific needs. The display showed medical advances that could extend lifespans, agricultural systems that could feed growing populations, and energy technologies that could power expanding civilizations. But more importantly, Dr. Turner continued, these research centers will work both ways. Humanity has much to learn from other species. The Centauri Alliance's expertise in biological sciences, the Rigelian mastery of mineral extraction, the Vorthan understanding of crystal technology, all of these will contribute to advances that benefit everyone. Admiral Lisa Grant took her turn at the podium. The Confederation Military Charter establishes a new model for galactic defense. Instead of species maintaining separate fleets that often conflict with each other, we will create joint task forces that combine the best capabilities of all member worlds. She activated another display showing fleet compositions that mixed ships from different species. Human vessels will provide advanced weapons and defense systems. Zephyrian ships will contribute their expertise in fleet coordination and tactics. Centauri Alliance vessels will offer their superior sensors and communication systems. The result will be a military force capable of protecting all member worlds while ensuring that no single species can dominate the others. As the day continued, representative after representative rose to speak about the new confederation. Trade agreements were announced that would create prosperity across the galaxy. Scientific partnerships were established to tackle challenges no single species could solve alone. Cultural exchange programs were planned to help different worlds understand each other better, but perhaps the most significant moment came when Ambassador Kate Wilson introduced the Confederation Protection Protocol. Any species threatened by aggression from non-member worlds can request Confederation protection, she announced. This protection will be immediate and decisive. The galaxy will know that attacking any Confederation member means facing the combined military might of all member worlds. The threat was politely worded but